Hello and welcome to 502 Sessions. I'm Brian Kirby. My guest today is singer-songwriter Tom Smith. Deeply rooted in the old school folk tradition, Tom's songs are at turns humorous, touching, thought-provoking, and inspiring. A veteran of over 35 years on the folk circuit, Tom performs at festivals, concerts, schools, and coffee houses throughout the Northeast to audiences both large and small, young and old. His stories are told in a voice that is both honest and sincere. Tom Smith.
It's great to be with you at 502 Sessions. This is a song I wrote on the occasion of the birth of a brand new guitar. Ebony and spruce and walnut. He introduced me to the corner where it stood. My first impression I recall, but it's just a box made out of wood. Though it was elegant in silence, like the falling of a star. It's his heart when he sings, and his touch upon the strings that give the wings to Phil's guitar. Simple strum behind a folk song, on a box on which three colors play as one. A perfect shape, a perfect union. One voice from black and white and brown. Harmony in form and color, like a painting by Renoir. It's his heart when he sings, and his touch upon the strings that give the wings to Phil's guitar. Is it the sharpened tools that shape the wood with skill? Is it the love that paid the bill? Is it a promise that can never be fulfilled? I know it can, I know it will. Now I have come to understand just how a guitar becomes more than assembled wood as soon as it leaves the craftsman's hands. It joins a song in brotherhood, like a golden rule to live by. What we sing is what we are. It's your heart when you sing, and your touch upon the strings that give the wings to your guitar. It's your heart when you sing, your touch upon the strings that give the wings to your guitar. This is a song I wrote for my wife the day we were on our 35th wedding anniversary. my melody and yours combined. In major key, common time, brings a peaceful kind of living harmony. Your love for me, you dance so lightly on your feet. Sometimes I need your help to find the beat. As our bodies move and spin through time and space, our lives embrace. Some seek the chord that can't be found, and so their songs remain unsung. I know that chord exists, it's in our kiss. When my head falls out of time with my guitar, you stroke the drum that has become our heart. It brings these things back into synchronicity. You, love, and me. You, love, and me. This was written for the start of the school year. I teach middle school, not for the faint of heart. When I think of all the things that I have made myself, like that shortwave radio or that bookshelf, if I compare them to the things I could have bought from stores, mine aren't as good, and I spent more. It's true. That's why some would say that doing it yourself doesn't make much sense when you add the time it takes to the expense. But I call that investment, and if I tally up the score, count what I give, I get back more. Here's a chorus. 3, 6, 9, 12, do it yourself. Count what you give, you'll get back more. Sing it next time. You know, simple things can turn a sad into a happy man. Like that loaf of bread when I knead the dough with my own 2 hands. And as I watch it rise, I feel my spirit with it soar. Count what I give, I get back more. Here we go. 9, 12. Do it yourself. Count what you give, you'll get back more. It's said that when you chop your own wood, it warms you twice. And when you bake a pie or sing a song in your own voice, that you will reap rewards you cannot buy from any store. Count what you give, you'll get back more. Your last chance now. 3, 6, 9, 12. Do it yourself. Count what you give, you'll get back. Count what you give, you'll get back more.
.502 Sessions, I'm here with singer-songwriter Tom Smith, who I have also learned is a middle school teacher.
That's right, Brian. It's great to be here.
Well, thank you for coming in, and let's talk about your music. We'll get to the middle school thing because I didn't know that, so now I'm fascinated by that for some bizarre reason. But your music, let's talk about 35 years. So you're deeply rooted in old school folk tradition, and you're a 35-year veteran of the folk circuit, and now you've been married 35 years. So those two things came all at once?
Well, actually, probably 35 was giving me some credit. It's probably close to 45 years on the music circuit. I came to the Cambridge area in what I describe as the folk quake of the 60s, and I came to go to school, and I just fell in love with all the music that was happening. And of course, that was the day of Joan Baez and Bob Dylan and all of the, the songwriters that were coming up of that era.
What, so you came to Cambridge to go to school?
That's right.
Where did you go to school?
I went to MIT.
Oh, for middle school teaching?
Well, that's another story, but the short story there is, I got an engineering degree, but what I really wanted to do was teach. So after I did engineering for a year or so, I taught math and science in a middle elementary school.
Okay.
And since then, I became director of technology, so I did IT work, and just recently retired, so I'm not at school anymore.
Oh, so you are no longer, where did you teach?
At the Park School in Brookline.
Oh, I'm familiar with that school. I have some students there myself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't teach there, but I have some students that I teach that go to the Park School. So MIT engineering, so music was a side for all this time? Or?
Yeah, music has always been a passionate hobby. I dabbled with it for a little while as a professional and realized that, first of all, it didn't pay all that well, but more importantly, when it became a business, the soul was pretty much lost from the music. And so I dropped that and basically just brought it into the schools, into my living room. Now I'm sharing it with the world.
When did you start sharing it, I guess I'll ask?
Well, I did traditional folk songs.
Define that, because we talked about old school folk traditions. So what does that mean?
So it's songs that usually are sometimes called real folk songs. You often don't know the composer of the song. Kind of goes in tradition from person to person and generation to generation. And the folk songs I sang were primarily American old folk songs, as well as the English and British Isles folk songs. English language tradition. And so I would sing those songs in schools and libraries, did that for 35 or more years. And about 12 or 13 years ago, the songwriting bug bit me, and that's where I am right now. I just am in love with writing songs.
Wow, it's only been 12 or 13 years. You have a lot of material out there. So you wrote with a frenzy.
Well, in order to inspire myself to do it, I started a blog, a monthly blog, which I call The Kitchen Musician, which is on my website. And once a month, I'll write a new song and post it on the web. Usually a reaction to something that's going on in my neighborhood or in the world or in my family, and something that strikes me, and I would write a song that I would share right then and there. So these are all informally recorded, and it just keeps me going and inspired.
Do you set the goal of a song a month, or does it just, so you, like a writer writes and they practice writing, so you, and do you come out of that saying, wow, January was great, but I'm not so thrilled about April?
Oh yeah, over the 10 years since my blog, The Kitchen Musician, has started, that's 10 times 12 is 120. Some of those songs are not so great, but they're
out there.
They're out there, and you can listen to those as well as the ones that I love.
Do you make a notation of that?
I'll let you listeners decide that.
Do you, at the bottom of the blog or when you post a song, is there room for comments like, oh, great job, Tom, or wow, you lost me on this one?
Yeah, it's become a bit of a community. People log in, and like if I don't post a blog until the second week of the month, sometimes I'll get emails and saying, hey, where's the blog?
Oh, that's good.
That's nice.
So when you're writing, when you're writing, do you think just the story and the guitar? Because I have seen you perform with your friend on mandolin. So sometimes you do a duo. Does it ever go bigger than that, or?
Well, sometimes I'll have a bass player and some other musicians, but most of the time it's me solo. And if I could, if it's a bigger venue, I'll bring in Seth. So it's often just the two of us. I like it to feel like it's in a living room.
And Seth is?
Seth Connolly is my musical compadre.
Okay.
And
So
he plays mandolin, guitar, bass, bouzouki, tennis racket, anything with strings.
Oh. So I cut you off there just so you get his last name. But so you were saying if it's a bigger
venue or something where I feel I need a fuller sound, Seth comes along and he fills it out. But still, like as I say, I'd like it to be informal and light and not a big band sound, because my music tends to be more down home.
Well, I'm always a fan of first thing you should add is a bass player. But I'll let that go. And
we'll talk about that afterwards. I can use a bass player sometimes.
There is one thing I specifically want to ask you now that I know you're an engineer from MIT. Does that mean if you graduate with a degree in engineering, so that makes you an engineer?
A mechanical engineer.
Or even better. So you're a mechanical engineer, and you wrote the song "Do It Yourself." Mm-hmm. Now that song's kind of aimed at me, I thought, because I tried to build a shelf once just to put a speaker on, and it wasn't square. But you're an engineer and it didn't work out well?
Well, let me just say that, there's a big difference between a mechanical engineer and a mechanic.
Okay, I understand.
So a mechanical engineer is somebody who's not necessarily good with tools. And I've done a bunch of do-it-yourself projects, and in the end, I'm off, just like in the song, which is perfectly true. I'm glad I did it. It usually took me more time, and they're usually a little bit off square. And I love what I've done, but they're not. You can notice that they're done by an amateur.
Oh, well, I feel somewhat better, I guess. Thank you for that. 502 Sessions. My guest is Tom Smith. How about some more music?
Happy to.
Tom Smith.
We were talking about songwriting, and yes, I try to write a new song, at least one new song every month. But there was a time last summer when I was in a bit of a writer's block, and it coincided with a rereading of the Declaration of Independence. And I started wondering if Thomas Jefferson had writer's block, and what that pregnant moment must have been when he took his quill pen, dipped it into ink, and there was a blank parchment in front of him. In the course of those events, he held the truth self-evident. Did he know his words would start raging fire from their spark? An empty paper and a pen, is this how it all began? Hesitation and a tremble in his hand. Did he doubt himself like me? Was he terrified to see that empty paper and a pen? She knows why a caged bird sings, a fearful trill of unknown things. How did she break out of her cage to overcome that empty page? Empty paper and a pen, is this how it all began? A hesitation and a tremble in her hand. Did she doubt herself like me, terrified to see that empty paper and a pen? I fear if I begin, words may tumble from within, and the forces they unleash can't be returned once they're released. Empty paper and a pen, I can't predict how this will end. Hesitation and a tremble in my hand. I can't control what may erupt if I reach out and I touch that empty paper with my pen. Paper and a pen. So sometime during the Paris Climate Summit, I decided I wanted to write a song about climate change. And as I went down that road, the subject just quickly overwhelmed me. And so I decided that I would turn the song into a first-person narrative. And the person singing the song here is kind of a collection of people I knew in Pennsylvania, where I grew up. Another day breaks, another hope wakes, another sun aches my back from dawn till dusk. Why do I keep on planting the same song? You say it's all wrong. My seeds will turn to dust, but for me, that's everything I know. Right here in these long straight roads. That's why I'm planting in a drought. I'm planting in a drought. Right now it all seems like a bad dream. These fields were once green, filled with promise for my son, but he cannot do what I was born to. Only a damn fool would follow me into the sun. But sometimes I see it in his eyes. He wants to give it one more try. That's why I'm planting in a drought. I'm planting in a drought. When they're explaining why it's not raining, the experts say things I don't understand. I know of hard work, although it can hurt. Feel this soft earth and my tools within your hands. For me, that's everything I know. It's right here in these long straight roads. That's why I'm planting in a drought. I'm planting in a drought. Another day breaks, another hope wakes. And like I say, that topic can get really big, really fast, and very discouraging. And I was feeling kind of discouraged at about the time of the climate summit, and frankly, since then, at the state of our political discourse. And so I was looking for a song that would encourage me and maybe encourage my students and other people who might listen to it. So I thought back to my mother. My mother would say things like, I don't know if I'm going to do well on that physics test tomorrow, Mom, she would say, well, just do the best you can, Tommy. So that became the hook in this song. And thinking about people who inspired me, the first one is a person whose birthday is this week, Pete Seeger. And the second is a little bit of nature, as every year we celebrate the return, at this time of the year, in April and May, return of the phoebes to the rafters on the front porch of our little cabin in New Hampshire. An old man on a stage, his age belies the power of his song. With a voice that may be shaky, he clearly sings of making right from wrong. Because he's old, he is told it's time to bring your singing to an end. He replies, as long as I can play my banjo, I will do the best I can. I do the best I can. I don't listen to the noise. I wake up, I take a stand, put my heart into my voice. Stones are smoothed by grains of sand. Even though I'm just one man, I do the best I can. That Phoebe in the rafters of my front porch does not stop to take a rest. When she hears that music flowing from her feathered offspring filling up her nest. To and fro, bugs in tow, on a task that never seems to end. So I ask her how she does it, and she tells me I just do the best I can. I do the best I can. I don't listen to the noise. I don't claim to understand. I do not have a choice, but I'll sing in the end. This is where it all began. That's why I do the best I can. Sometimes I count myself among the many who are ready to give up. Perhaps we're starting way too late and the distance is too great to make it up. But step by step we can get farther from the start than from the end. For the sake of all my children and their children, I will do the best I can. I'll do the best I can. I don't listen to the noise. I woke up, I'll take a stand, put my heart into my voice. I can get there in the end. I'll sing it once again. I do the best I can. Just do the best you can. Don't listen to the noise. Wake up, take a stand. Put your heart into your voice. You will get there in the end. Every woman, every man, do the best you can. We will get there in the end, if together hand in hand, we do the best we can.
.502 Sessions, I'm back with Tom Smith. Let's talk music. You write purposefully once a month. When you write, do you also purposefully think, I want to play in this key because I did that key last month? Do you mix it up? How do you decide what, melodically, I guess?
Well, when I arrange for a set, if I'm doing a performance set, it's definitely the case. But
wait, when you're arranging a performance set, what's definitely the case?
Definitely the case where you say, well, I don't want to do things that are too similar in a row, that I'm finger picking in the same way, or they're in the same key, or they're about the same subject without it having a different take. You know, so I do that. But once a month, it's usually it's just pretty natural. Something's happening, and I'm constantly thinking, like many artists, keeping my ears open for the gift that you might get of an interesting metaphor or a phrase that is said by a 5-year-old or a headline of a newspaper or whatever. And frankly, I'll just take it wherever I can get it, and I don't really think, is this too similar from last month? Although this past month, I realized that many of my songs recently have been topical songs in reaction to the election and political discourse. And so this month I am specifically trying to write a song that's not political.
You haven't looked back after a year and said, holy cow, every song sounds the same in the same key? It hasn't happened.
My wife tells me that.
Oh.
So she's my good...
So you don't need to look back.
I don't need to look back.
It's always good to have a critic right in the house.
She's very very good, and she tells it like it is. She'll say, that song sounds like that song.
When you mentioned getting inspired by a newspaper headline or something a 5-year-old might say, does that come to you when you're not sitting to write and then you have to run and get a piece of paper? Do you carry a notebook with you? Do you have a recorder?
I carry a notebook frequently,
You do?
but I always have my phone, and I have some notes that are my songwriting notes. And so I'll quickly grab a note and type up some thoughts that I might have. The most fertile time for writing is actually very early morning. So I'll wake up, have a cup of coffee at 6:30 or so, and for me that's early.
That's early for me.
And that's the time I used to wake up before I was retired. And I'll just go downstairs, and with a cup of coffee, I'll just start banging on the guitar and looking over my notes and working it from there. Sometimes things stick, and sometimes they just roll. Sometimes it's a wasted morning, but you know.
Is it a wasted morning though, because you've been writing? So I guess define wasted.
Well, I guess
in terms of
waste, yeah, I guess nothing is wasted because,
well, it's possible.
Because you always can find something from it, or it may lead to something you hadn't expected.
Or at the very least, you can say, "I'll never do that again."
But there are many mornings when I'll be finished with the morning. I'll say, "Well, I'm no closer to a song than I was yesterday." It can be discouraging that way, but the process is so much fun that I just go back at it again anyway.
And when you say cup of coffee and spend the morning writing, how much time is that?
A couple hours, usually 3 hours maybe.
And then you go out for a 15-mile run, or?
And then I'll now that I'm retired, I can exercise more frequently. So yeah, I like to take a walk. Dedham's a great place for walking.
If you've been writing for 2 hours, it doesn't shut off though, right? So if you're writing for 2 hours and you say, I'm going for a walk, you might get a mile from the house and say, holy cow, I got to get back.
Yeah, that's why I keep my phone with me all the time. I'll record into it an idea or type into it, into a note, yeah. And
your songs, the melodies have a lilt to them, a rhythmic. I remember that one of the first songs you did with the synchronicity in it, correct? And so even without a melody behind it, when you're writing, it comes out with a certain rhythm that you're thinking?
Well, people who write songs do it in all different ways. For me, I find the best way to write a song is, first of all, to kind of outline what I want to say. Before putting a lot of work in it, I say, okay, this is a song about planting in a drought or something. And so I'll say, well, the first verse is going to introduce person, and the second verse is going to introduce somebody else, and the third verse is going to try to bring it all together. Okay, so once I have an outline, then I'll try to find a chord progression that will go to it and a melody, and then I'll start really the hard work of, once I have a meter that I like, I'll put the words to the meter. And
do you fit an odd meter in there if something's not coming out right, or do you try and?
Yeah, you really don't want to edit yourself. Kind of be a. Okay. You just want to say, okay, I'm just going to throw it in there. I know it's not the right number of syllables, but I can work on that later. And then later on, you find a different word or a different way to say what you want to say. You might have to change a rhyme around, but you don't want to edit yourself in that stage.
The creative process.
Yeah, the creative process. And then once you say, okay, I have a song here, and then 3/4 of the work is yet to be done with the editing.
Is this something you've learned over time, or do you go to, I know they have these writing workshops at different folk festivals and things. Is this something you've intuited, or you have friends in the folk business?
I have had some good mentors who've given me tips and read books, and I've tried teaching songwriting, which was a great way to kind of pull together my thoughts on songwriting. So like they say, if you want to really know something, you should teach it.
I have heard that.
Mm-hmm. And so I thought that was very helpful, because I had to really think, if I'm going to teach this to somebody, what do I really think are the important parts? So yeah, it's a combination of all of that. We all stand on the shoulders of giants.
Before we go on to the next tune, do you want to tell me what it's about, or do you prefer to reserve that for? I thought maybe we could talk about one before you get into it.
Okay, sure. Well,
What is next?
well,
So
let's
the money flows up.
Okay, let's do The Money Flows Up, because I mentioned earlier I'm a long-time singer of traditional folk songs, and one of my heroes is Woody Guthrie. So I've learned and sung a lot of his songs, and certainly a left-leaning singer. Kind of matches my politics in some ways.
Have you ever met a conservative folk singer? I'm just curious.
Their songs tend to be terrible, but
Oh,
I'm just kidding on that. But there are conservative folk singers, but most of us are on the left side, and so I started thinking about trickle down theory, because Woody would sing songs about the banks or the common man, and so I thought, well, what would Woody sing about? How would he put it in terms of trickle down theory? And so this next song is kind of like me channeling Woody in a lecture about trickle-down economics.
and it's called?
Called The Money Flows Up.
All right. Tom Smith on 502 Sessions. Thank you.
The money flows up. The money flows up. We can work all day, never fill our cup. Where the costs flow down, the money flows up. I work 2 jobs, my wife does too. There's nothing else when the bills come due. And we can work all day, never fill our cup. Where the costs flow down, the money flows up. The money flows up. The money flows up. We can work all day, never fill our cup. Where the costs flow down, the money flows up. When you build your house on a master plan that's born on the backs of the common man, but the benefits go to the few at the top, then all the costs flow down and the money flows up. The money flows up. The money flows up. When the benefits go to the few at the top, all the costs flow down, the money flows up. I've got this to say to the penthouse few. There's 99 of me for every one of you. And we could break that dam where the deals are struck to make the costs flow down and the money flow up. The money flow up. To make the money flow up. We could break that dam where the deals are struck that make the costs flow down and the money flow up. And to the folks who work down on Capitol Street and hear just the voice of the corporate elite, it's quite simple, you could fix this up. Spread the costs around and the money shows up. The money shows up. The money shows up. It's quite simple, you can fix this up. Spread the costs around and the money shows up. 'Cause we can work all day, never fill our cup. Where the benefits go to the few at the top. But we could break that dam where the deals are struck to make the costs flow down, the money flow up. One of my favorite poets is Robert Frost. And of course, like everybody, I like Two Roads Diverged. And I got to thinking about that as a metaphor for a song I wanted to write for a friend who had a very difficult decision to make about a relationship that he was in. And he knew that no matter what his decision, which road he went down, it was not going to be pretty. And I also realized after rereading the Robert Frost poem, I realized I had hadn't gotten it wrong all these years. He really didn't know which was the less traveled by. He just justified it later in life as he was older. Two roads diverge in a yellow wood. Frost wrote these famous words, often misunderstood. He could not tell which was less traveled by. I too can't tell, still I must decide. Yes, I must decide. One road half true, one road half false. No matter which I choose, I cannot resolve the unintended consequence of bridges that I burn, consuming the path of my return. There is no return. This road unsung, that road unheard, I travel either one and someone will get hurt. Tell myself no one is to blame, but that won't soothe the target of the pain. And there will be pain. They say it takes time to earn back what you've lost. That's true of money, and it's true of trust. Farther down the line, I hope our roads will cross on journeys that are worthy of the cost. May they be worth the cost. Two roads diverge in a yellow wood.
.502 Sessions, my guest today has been singer, songwriter Tom Smith. Thank you very much for being here today.
My pleasure.
502 Sessions is all about original music. So if you're a musician, a folk singer, or a tenor sax player, or a trombonist, or a rock band, rhythm and blues, any style, I like to do any style of original music on 502 Sessions. So don't refrain from contacting me if you're interested. You can reach me at 502sessions@gmail.com. Thank you once again, Tom.
My pleasure.
Would you like to play us out?
I'd love to.
Oh, really? Great. Tom Smith on 502 Sessions.
Dear Mom, it is snowing in Boston. The nights here are lonely and long. The stars can't compete with the lights in the street. Their brightness displaces the dawn. December here sparkles like glitter. I admit it has its own charm. But these glass Christmas stars, as bright as they are, they're not like the stars in the farm, the stars on the farm, the stars on the farm. They're not like the stars on the farm. My days are now filled with computers, meetings and telephone calls. Though it's work that I've chosen, it leaves my heart frozen like ice stops the flow of the Charles. I can't taste the fruit of my labor like those peaches you canned in the barn. Can't write code by the court. There's no warmth in this work. It's not like the work on the farm, the work on the farm, the work on the farm. It's not like the work on the farm. Tonight I went out for some friendship. The clubs here never close down. With electric guitars ringing out from the bars, there's music all over this town. But they don't sing songs like you used to, and they never play three-quarter time. Though they sing loud and strong, to me it's all wrong. They're not like the songs on the farm, the songs on the farm, the songs on the farm. They're not like the songs on the farm. Now wherever I go, my tracks in the snow remind me of where I came from. Though we are apart, you are here in my heart. I will always be part of the farm, part of the farm, part of the farm. I will always be part of the farm. When I think of all the things that I have made myself, like that shortwave radio or that bookshelf, if I compare them to the things I could have bought from stores, mine aren't as good and I spent more. It's true. That's why some would say that doing it yourself doesn't make